If you're playing in church a bunch, you've likely encountered the worship toms. This simple yet elusive groove pattern is in so many of these modern worship songs that we hear and play a whole bunch. And so you've got to know it. If your tom grooves feel forced, sloppy, and not natural though, then today's lesson is for you. There's likely just one simple and fixable issue going on with your worship tom groove, your jungle drum groove. And here's what it might be. A lack of coordination between your hands and your right foot, preventing you from playing the 4/3 polyrhythm, which we're going to talk some more about today. Without learning a simple singles accent pattern I'm teaching you today, you'll have a hard time freeing your hands from your feet to freely improvise tom patterns on the drums. We'll learn this pattern though, and you'll find the 4/3 polyrhythm just naturally flowing out of your limbs as you nail modern worship songs, any jungle drum tom sort of song, and you'll have a lot of fun just feeling free and independent and creative on the drums. You can do this. Hey, welcome to The Non-Glamorous Drummer. I'm so glad you're hanging out today. I help self-taught beginners know what to practice so that they can nail songs and become the drummer that others want to jam with. And speaking of knowing what to practice, if you have ever felt stuck, if you've ever not known what to practice, or you've been wondering like, am I growing as fast as I ought to be? You know, I look at that person and they're growing really quick, but I feel like I'm just not growing quickly. I'm losing motivation. I'm starting to get discouraged because I'm not where I thought I would be by now. If that's you, if you've ever dealt with that, I have a free gift for you that's going to help you out a whole bunch. It's my beginner to gigging 6-step method that you can follow even if you just have 30 minutes a day. And even if your goal isn't to gig with a band, you need to be able to. That means being able to nail songs and play freely, all that fun stuff. And so this needs to be a goal. And hey, you can get there in 6 steps. It's actually less than 6 steps. And then in the guide, we talk about going beyond gigging into some additional stages. But what's so cool about this is that this is your method. This shows you where you're at, what to practice next, how to get there. Once you know where you are and which stage you're in, you then know how to get to the stage you want to get to. And so this is a really cool, really complete method that's going to show you everything you need to practice. It's action-packed with all the resources you need so that you know where you stand, you can get unstuck, stay motivated, and have a lot of fun knowing exactly what to practice as you work from beginner or wherever you're at to being able to nail songs, gigging with a band, to then being able to improvise and record and all the fun stuff we want to get to beyond that. So go grab it. It's my beginner to gigging automatic growth path guide in the description below, my free gift to you. All right, on with today's lesson. So playing the whole worship tom groove is hard, frustrating. I've heard this from a lot of drummers that they're kind of frustrated by the fact that so many of these new songs we're playing in church are so tom heavy because they'd rather just play groove, like play pocket stuff. And so that's been a common frustration voiced to me, and some people are annoyed with this stylistic thing, this current trend in modern worship music. But the thing is that a lot of that contributes to, you know, the size, the bigness, the epicness of a lot of these songs. And so we've got to be able to do these tom patterns well. And besides the whole fact that this is a big worship drumming thing, we need to be able to play tom patterns well and freely. And so even if you're not a fan of that style of playing, you still need to get really good at this because it's going to carry over into your coordination in general and your ability to improvise. And so if you've been frustrated by this, if you just feel like you can't play them well, things are sloppy, hey, like I said, this is for you. We're going to dive into this and we're going to fix it. So just to make sure we're on the same page, to be super clear, you heard there in the intro me playing a worship tom groove, basically the basic form of it that we're getting into today. I'm going to play it for you again right now, just so you can hear it, so you know, okay, here's exactly what we're talking about. And I'll go into a couple of variations so you can kind of hear how it might sound, how it might change by song. some songs that pretty much have that exact kind of tom pattern, tom groove in it, or some of those subtle variations. Overcome by Elevation, that one came out a few years ago. That was one of the first ones, I think, at least one of the first really popular ones to have a very straight boom, doom, doom, ba. Another one, King of Kings by Hillsong. That one has the variation where the pattern actually starts on the and, one and a two, boom, 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 boom. It happens in the second chorus. Second chorus, you'll hear that. Son of Suffering, the Matt Redman version. The first double chorus in that song very much has the simple boom, doom, doom, ba, super simple. Pretty much the same with Waymaker, the Leland version of Waymaker. I Speak Jesus, Charity Gale has that kind of pattern going into the second chorus, I believe. I Thank God, Maverick City. This is kind of a unique example because it's a lot faster. That song is more like, it's a much faster, very fast jungle drums kind of thing. And so it's the same rhythm, it's just a much quicker tempo than a lot of these slow, upper 60s, low 70s beats per minute songs. So those are some to check out. Odds are, if you are watching this video as a church drummer and you're playing a lot of the modern worship stuff, you're very familiar with many of these. If you aren't, go check them out. Great place to start and to hear a lot of these patterns in action. And because so many of these songs are slow, it's a really great place to practice this as you're learning it too, and to really work the tom to kick independence in a fun, not super quick way. So I came up playing in church. I've been playing in church for probably about 15 years now. And the first time I remember running into a lot of these tom songs, because this was like 2009, and so we were starting to move into kind of the genre of modern worship that we now know today. We were kind of moving away from a lot of the groove pocket stuff that many of us were more familiar with playing, and we were getting into more of this whole tom thing, and drum parts were actually becoming a little bit more complex getting into the 2010s. And so, without going into all the nerdy history of how Christian music has evolved, I remember just playing these tom songs, and my goal was kind of just to play randomness, like let's just play a whole bunch of notes and see if it comes across well and see if it works. Problem was, it was sloppy, it was a whole bunch of mess of notes, and I was constantly, my strategy was just the punk rock. How about if I can just go... If I can just keep some going on the floor time, at least it'll feel like a tom groove. But instead, it just kind of felt, I don't know, it didn't feel good. I remember realizing that, and this was all a mess until I discovered the 4/3 polyrhythm and how powerful and compelling it could be in a tom groove. If I literally took the 4/3 polyrhythm and just applied that, then suddenly there was space in my playing, suddenly there was rhythm, suddenly there was intentionality and purpose behind these tom grooves, and they all started to take on a much better, cleaner, more professional, polished feel. And of course, my coordination grew a whole bunch in the process, and that's what I'm teaching you today. That's what we're going to get at. I'm going to show you exactly how to kind of hack your way into this, and then how to actually play the polyrhythm and how to apply that to these grooves so that you can really level up your tom grooves. And so really, here's what we're getting at today. This is super simple. By learning a simple right-left pattern with accents, you can trick your brain into learning the 4/3 polyrhythm used to construct the worship toms groove with ease. And we're calling this the worship toms thing because it shows up in so many of these songs, but this is any kind of jungle drum pattern that could show up in any kind of song, honestly. And this is going to help your coordination and help your playing across the board in any genre of playing. So let's get into this. 3 steps to smooth worship tom grooves. Number 1, all we're going to do is play alternating 16ths on the floor tom over quarter notes on the kick, just like this. Of course, the fundamental thing here is make sure these are smooth, even, tight, and that right hand is always locking in with the kick. Make sure you can do that well, and you can do this with your metronome. I don't have a metronome going right now in my ears at all. We're kind of assuming, that low 70s, like 70 beats per minute kind of range, since that's where a lot of these songs are. So that's step 1. Now, step 2, we want to add a dotted 8th accent pattern. But don't let this be harder than it needs to be. So all we're going to do, long story short, a dotted 8th is equal in value to 3/16. So if we play a dotted 8th accent pattern, that means we're going to accent every 3/16, like this. 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a 4. And we'll stop there on 4. So does that make sense? It's like we're grouping. It's kind of like triplets, but it's not triplets. We're still playing 16ths, but we're accenting as though they were triplets, and we're going a 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 bump bum 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 bum. So here's what it sounds like. Just like that. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4. It's okay if you can't count them well yet. You don't. That's not a necessary prerequisite. I'm just doing that so that it's very straight and clear for you. But we're accenting every third 16th. So that actually creates a dotted eighth pattern. Boom, 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 bum, boom, boom, bum, boom, bum. And here's what it also does. It creates a 4/3 polyrhythm. That rhythm, that accented rhythm, if we were to take out all the soft notes and just play the accents, that becomes a 4 on top of the 3 that's on the kick, because it ends up like this. Ba, dum, boom, ba, boom, ba, bum, bum, boom, bum, boom, bum. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Let me do it just to make sure this is super clear. I want to make sure you understand this. I'm going to do it between my hands, and I'm going to count them for you. So actually, I'm going to do it on the rims here, so it's softly so you can hear my voice. So I'm going to play the 4 with the right hand. Imagine that this is the floor tom playing the 4. I'm going to play the 3 with my left hand on the rim of the snare. Imagine that's the kick drum. So it's going to sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So for every 4 notes happening here, 3 notes happen here. So we've got 3 notes happening on the kick drum in the space that we're playing 4 notes on the floor tom. Now, because we're playing in 4/4 time, that actually gives us extra space at the end of the bar, and we finish on beat 4. If that's confusing, don't worry about it. This is just what ends up happening in 4/4. Boom, dun, 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 boom, dun, 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 4. And so we're just putting in a nice little breath, a nice little pause there on beat 4. So if you've done our step 2, which is the accented 16ths, which creates the dotted eighth pattern, which creates the polyrhythm, you're tricking your brain into actually playing a polyrhythm here if you've never done it before. Make sure you can do this well. Spend however much time doing that slowly to get that pattern down, and practice that until it's nice and smooth. And then as you start getting faster with it, it'll actually feel more natural. You'll start to get it in your head, and it'll make a lot more sense. So once you can do that, we kind of already hinted at where we're going next. Step 3 is just play the 4/3 polyrhythm without all the extra 16ths. So now let's just take your right hand and go. Just like that, either hand, just one hand at a time. Hopefully you like sympathetic snare buzz. I've got a lot going on here, but I kind of like it. I like it when I've got this nice warm rack tom that just lights up the snare. I feel like it ties the whole kit together. Topic for another video. If you're bothered by snare buzz, don't let it bother you. It's fine. Nobody cares. And when you record, sometimes it's actually a nice glue that pulls everything together. So now practice this, changing hands sporadically. So you could do it like this. Just like that. And at that point, you've got the 4/3. So spend as much time on that step as you need to. Because, hey, once you've done that, so we said 3 steps. That's the 3rd step. And at this point, you've got the 4/3 polyrhythm, which means you can take this and you can apply this to any of these jungle drum groove types and play them nice and simply, where they're not overbearing and they're not a flood of notes, but instead they're a nice musical melodic kind of thing. A recurring theme here in these non-glamorous lesson videos is the whole concept of playing melodically in your playing, and not just playing random notes, not just playing flurries of notes. Yes, there are times when you need to just play around the kit, and that's the feel to play. And sometimes a groove needs to be fast and busy. But a lot of times we just need simple rhythms that feel like melodies for the listener to gravitate to, for the band to latch onto, because that's so much more interesting. And so a lot of times the more interesting groove, instead of maybe we're playing punk rock and that's the groove. But if we're playing worship and if we're playing a lot of, just more simple laid back rock, the groove might just be boom, doom, doom, ba, doom. So there's only 3 notes you play with your hands the whole measure. Sometimes that's what needs to happen and that's what feels right. So we need to be able to do that and play more sparsely and play more melodically. These 3 steps help you get there. So extra step, what you can do next actually, is remove one of the notes actually the fourth note in our pattern. So the fourth note we play with our hands that completes the 4/3. If we take that out, we end up with this. So we're just playing the first three, doom, 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 and we're stopping. Just playing those three, then we can add a snare backbeat on beat 4, and at that point, it kind of gives us more of a groove feel. So we end up with this. Now you can play all 4 notes. You could do. That's great. A lot of times in a lot of these songs, it's even simpler and we just leave out that final note over here and we just play. And so it gives us some more space. We just have the 1 and 2 and pow, boom, boom. We kind of give the tom some time to sing and carry out boom, boom, bo, ba, boom, boom. It just creates a really cool feel, and I think that's why this is such a popular groove and pattern in so many of these songs. So that's your extra step. Practice just playing that. Stick it and orchestrate it any way you want to. You could do left hand up here, right hand here. You could do all the notes on the floor tom, whatever you want to do, and then practice from there, going into some different variations. So without spending a lot of time on this, here's something else I'll throw at you. So you can do this whole pattern, this whole 4/3 type of pattern where you start on beat 1. That's what we've been doing here. But you can also shift it over to the E, or you can shift it over to the and. Now the E is a little bit weird. Let's talk about the and first. If you shift it to the and, that means you end up with this. So you end up with that same boom, boom, boom kind of pattern. We're just starting it on the and of the beat instead of beat 1. So we have 1 and a 2 and a 3, 4. Boom, with same backbeat on 4. You could play all 4 notes here and you end up with leading right there into beat 4. A 4 would be the beat 3, a 4. You could do that or just play the first 3. This is the pattern that we hear in that second chorus of King of Kings by Hillsong, one of the songs I mentioned. That one has boom, 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 ba, boom, boom, and so it starts on the and. It's this really cool, epic feel. And so sometimes, depending on the melody of the song, just depending on the song, sometimes the pattern starts on the beat, sometimes it starts on the and. But those are the 2 super common variations of playing it, and it's cool how you can shift the pattern to change it. Now you can also start it on the E of 1, which is super weird. I don't think I've ever heard that in a worship song. There is, let's see, there are some songs out there that have it. It's tricky. It's very rare to find. It's hard to go out and look for a song that has it. But if it starts on the E, it's going to feel like this. And so it would just sound like that. We go bam, bam, which is super weird, this weird syncopated anticipation kind of feel. I've yet to hear it in a worship song. Maybe you have. If you can think of a song that has that, tell me. There's actually a song by, I believe it's the Marcus King Band, and I'm blanking on the song title. It's by Marcus King Band that has a slow groove just like that where the toms come in on the E. It's the only song I know of that has that. So much more commonly, we're starting it on the beat, and then fairly commonly, we're starting it on the and. So practice it both ways there. And here's what's going to happen. As you work on the 3 steps and you practice, adding in the backbeat on 4, doing the variations, you're just going to get more and more comfortable with this. And so if you practice this consistently, you're going to find that your 4-way coordination will improve a ton because you're developing all this hand freedom on top of a foot pattern. That's awesome, and that's going to help you so much in playing patterns, playing grooves that aren't just basic backbeat grooves. It's easy to play timekeeping in a backbeat, but if that's all we're able to do, we're being lazy. Yes, certain songs call for basic money beat, but a lot of times we need to be able to explore other options. We've got this whole kit in front of us, and we need to be able to use it to our fullest ability. And so your coordination is going to grow a lot. You'll be able to actually do all these things. Here's another big one. You'll be able to improvise any rhythm you want on top of that kick pattern. That's pretty awesome. Being able to just improvise and play whatever, you'll feel so much freedom as you're playing. And you'll be technically able to play any modern worship song. There's some modern worship songs that have weird drum parts. It's all become a lot less simple and straightforward than it was years ago, back when I first started playing. There's just a lot of complex parts, and everybody's trying to make their songs interesting and make their drum parts interesting. But what you'll find is that if you practice this a bunch, give this a few months to really settle in, become second nature, you'll have the independence to play any of these patterns and play whatever you want. And that's an amazing feeling. So, question for you as you go. What is your favorite song with the worship toms? Of all the songs you've played in church that you've listened to, that you've practiced, what is your favorite one that has the worship toms? Tell me in the comments below. Let's have fun talking about this. I told you some of mine. Those are definitely some of my most common ones and favorite examples. Hey, I hope this has been super helpful to you. I hope you'll take action on this, practice this. I want you to be the best church drummer you can be and be able to serve your church powerfully and be a good drummer, because, a big part of serving on a worship team at church is, yes, you're there to worship, you're there to serve, but we're also called to be good at what we do. Excellence is a big deal. That's something that's very clear in the Bible. We need to be good at what we do as we're serving others. And so get good at this. Get as good at this as you can and have fun working on this. I hope this has been super helpful to you and valuable to you. As always, stay non-glamorous. Know that you can do this. I'll see you on the next video.